How you doing, Ryan? You all right?
I'm very good, thank you, Roger.
Excellent, excellent. So guys, I'm here with Ryan Carter, who is a certified health coach, who specializes in nutritional therapy and has varying degrees of functional medicine. And he goes by the handle, is it Live Vitae?
Live Vitae.
Oh, sorry, Live Vitae.
Live.
Okay.
Yeah, Live Vitae. Well, Vitae, it's the same thing essentially. It's just my pronunciation of Vitae. Yeah, live life essentially.
Okay, okay. How did you come with that name anyway? How did you come across this name?
It was my auntie. I was just thinking of brand names of being a nutritionist. I didn't want to call myself like Ryan Carter Nutrition. I wanted to be a bit more bolder and a bit more meaning, and it came from the Greek words live vitae, like vitae, like your CV. So it's like your curriculum vitae. So it's your life story and live life, and that's what it's all about. It's like living life to your best, and that's how it came about.
Okay. So just give us a little bit of background about yourself, how you got involved in like nutritional therapy and like functional medicine and that sort of thing. You have a varied degree of knowledge in this area, and it'd be interesting to know how you just came into this.
So it came from the back of having a eating disorder around 10 years ago. I got down to the weight of 55 kilograms, which is like nearly half my weight now. So quite an astonishing feat of being 55 kilograms. Wow. Essentially, I was just looking to improve my health, looking to put on muscle mass. I came across a personal trainer one day, and he sort of guided me around to the paleo diet, bulletproof, which you obviously know of, and started my journey on discovering health and asking questions and learning more, and stemmed me to want to make a career move instead of working for my dad in his antique shop to become a nutritional therapist, and actually with the learnings that I found to help people and make a difference in their life.
Right. So it hadn't been like a lifelong passion. It was more a case of because of your own experience, what you'd gone through.
Yeah, essentially. And you'll find in a nutritional game with other therapists or dietitians as such, it usually comes on the back of their own traumatic or own personal issues or experience, and they have a desire to find out the whys, the whats, the whens, the hows. So that's pretty common in this industry, actually. So that's how I got into that.
Okay. So what would you say are the best ways to make a decision on a diet? There's so many different theories out there, but if somebody wanted to find the right thing suitable for them, what's the best way to get started, would you say?
So the diet world is extremely complex. So it's literally going to be based on you. It's going to be based on the individual in front of me or on you. And like the context really does matter. And where you at, what's going on with you, what's your life stage at, what's your gender, what's the amount of stress that you're having in your life, how physically active you are. There's so many variables, and these will sort of influence what diet you should really be on. So that's quite a tough question to ask, and such a broad answer that I could give. There's not one diet which is the perfect diet out there.
Sorry.
There's many things, but we got to think of even geographical location. That's going to have a massive impact of what foods you can consume.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because like our modern health, like our modern food system has dramatically changed. It used to be about what was locally grown. i.e. like your allotments, what was grown in the farm a few miles away. Now it's literally what's shipped over from the Caribbean to Asia to Australasia to China. It's like we have a food abundance, and we've sort of lost our connection to our roots of how food was created and grown. So there's that nuance into it as well. But it depends on the person. Like most people starting a health journey, they don't need to probably go into that much detail. They probably just need to remove the highly processed, hyperpalatable foods from their diet, sleep more, and eat more single ingredient foods. So that's the start of making a change. And then,
when you say single ingredient, what do you mean exactly?
just a whole food essentially. So we're talking of things like a sweet potato, a steak, an egg, butter, vegetables, fruits. Essentially, not an ingredient made up of a magnitude. Well, just not a man-made ingredient essentially, which has a formulation and has preservatives or colorings and has been sort of constructed.
Got you. You mentioned about local food. It's pretty difficult to get local food these days unless maybe you find a local produce. What's your thoughts on people buying food which is shipped over from different parts of the world?
Well, it's, for me, from personally speaking, I think that's pretty inflammatory. It's sort of, it's not how it was designed. It was designed in context into that environment. So why is there bananas growing along the equator? There's no bananas growing in the northern hemisphere where we are. For me, it doesn't make sense from common sense, and it doesn't make sense from physics or biochemistry to have that banana and eat that in England when it's in winter. Yes, I don't really agree with it, but then I don't think it's the worst thing. Like it could be even. I would say having McDonald's or KFC would be more of an issue than worrying about something like that. But it depends how much you want to go into the detail and how much you really want to feel amazing, because different food, like food's created in an environment, and it's created by the soil, it's created by the water, the temperature and light. So these things are gonna interact and change the chemical structure of the foods, and we ingest these chemical structures. So for example, say along the equator, the food there is very high in deuterium, which is an isotope of hydrogen. So when we're ingesting these foods, theoretically speaking, that these are heavier. So it's heavier than deuterium depleted foods, which would be found in the northern hemisphere in cold environments. And these get transported into our mitochondria, and this is where we create energy in our cell, and the body has to deal with it. And there's multiple studies that show that high deuterium is an issue if there's no presence of UV light, UVA, UVB light, and that's what you find in these environments where these foods are grown. So it's sort of there's a nuance there between how it's grown and produced, and then when you eat it and the environmental signal which you eat it in. Does that make sense?
Yes. It was starting to get to synchronize together as you was talking.
Yeah, and that goes back to the seasonalities. So when you're on the equator, there's hardly any difference in the day and night, i.e. it's usually just 12 hours light dark cycle. There's no real fluctuation in the temperature. It's just literally just dry and wet season. In the northern or southern hemisphere, we are run by seasons, i.e. like winter, summer, spring, autumn. And there's going to be a change in the food there,
Yeah, wow, yeah, that's interesting. So I understand as well that sometimes foods are, or a lot of the time, foods are like manipulated in a sense of making the vegetables believe that it is the season for it to be ripe. What is the procedure which is being used there? is there a spray which is being used? Are they put in a certain incubator? And
Yeah,
what
well,
is
it'd
it
be just, it'd be
for us?
green, well, it'd be greenhouses and polytunnels. And that's when you think, when you see tomatoes from Spain all year round. So it's sort of manipulated. The water they use, there might be issues with, and it's a fake light signal which they're getting and a fake temperature. So it's not getting the same hormetic. So I'm not sure if you know that word, hormetic, hormesis. So like a stress,
like a homeostasis,
so yeah,
natural.
yes, you got it. Yeah, so it's like hormesis is a stress promoting input from the environment, or it'd be from working out as well. So you'll be breaking down muscle in the gym because you're after that damage, but then your body comes along and repairs it. And that's the same when you think about food, the light, the UV in particular, it creates damage. And that's what makes these so-called antioxidants remarkable, is because they have inflicted UV damage. And that's why they're found at high altitudes, for example. And the phytonutrients, and that phyto is from photo being light. So it's all to do with light at the end of the day. I lost my train of thought. So where are we going with that? I can't remember what the question was. Sorry,
It was just to do with like, let's say for instance.
Okay, yeah. So sorry, yeah. So so when a food gets sprayed with pesticide, or GMO food, you're removing the ability, the natural defense mechanism of these foods to offset like bugs or worms trying to attack it, or the sun, or whatever it may be, and you're sort of making it more yield more crops. So the farmer and the industry at the end of the day cannot have damaged crops. It can make more money at the end of the day. So that's the process there. So when you go to the farmer's market, it will be very seasonal. It won't be grown in like a polytunnel or from Spain, or it'll literally just be in a back garden or in a farm somewhere, and won't be sprayed with pesticides to the sort of level of Tesco's crops, for example. It would be sprayed minimally, but they'll be more safer.
Right, got you. What are your thoughts on food products that are quite questionable for health, but somehow pass FDA? They get FDA approved, and it's like, you think, how did this end up on the shelves? Like, this surely isn't very healthy. This might be a bit of a political question, but what's your thoughts on that? Do you have any personal thoughts on that?
What food are you talking about? Give me some examples.
No, maybe foods with GMO, or even foods which lack proper nutrition, even sweeteners, let's say aspartame. Lots of studies or clinical studies has shown that there's it can lead to...
Sorry, I cut out there, sorry.
Okay, so for example, things like artificial sweetness, clinical studies have shown could lead to cancer. And
well, they're a funny one. You got to think most studies out there are manipulated to get the result that they want. A study has to be funded by someone because the study's not free. So there's even going to be some studies that will say it's safe, there's no issues. Think of like aspartame, Diet Coke, calorie-free alternatives. I think at the end of the day, if you're going to have one or two, it's not a big deal. If you're going to make it a staple thing in your diet or food choices, and you have some addictive properties, issues with those foods, or they're making you consume more calories as such, then I would be looking to remove them.
I mean, these are from like, personal food choices for people to eat. Obviously, it makes sense to look into the amount of consumption in certain types of foods, whether it's artificial or not. But I'm talking about like do you find that there are certain foods which are questionable as to whether it should be on the shelf at all?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like there's some terrible foods out there. Like they shouldn't even make it to the shelves.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
there's some shocking things out there.
which has been approved by FDA. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's just crazy. Like, there obviously is a demand for the food, so they're making money. So they're gonna sell them, and they don't really care about people's health long term. At the end of the day, like the food industry more or less doesn't really care about your health. They're there to make money and profit at the end of the day. So they'll literally just sell crap if they could, and that's what like 90% of the food, even in the UK without the FDA, even in the UK, like 90% of the food in like supermarkets is crap. It's like completely so far-fetched from how we used to live as hunter-gatherers.
Yeah, yeah. I do question, like, who monitors FDA? Like, are they audited as to, like, you know, because certain foods manage to just get through and get through and get through, and I'm like, wow, like.
Well, you got to think of who the government subsidize these food industries. Look at the corn and soy industry. They spend a huge amount of money to promote them, and that goes back to the people funding these studies. Or there was recently last year an Eat Lancet paper that said that that the typical diet should consume like 70% of whole grains and like 2% of animal protein. It's just like ridiculous. And we both know like how important animal protein is for the human body. Without going to the extremes of carnivore, just even the basis of having like at least 30 to 40% of our calories coming from protein sources.
Yeah. I was going to say, so I know you eat vegetables and fruits in season. How can others do that as well? I think you've mentioned about, you know, the reasons for eating things in season. You know, people tend to do their shopping in supermarkets a lot of the time.
Yeah, I do as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's basic tips of having the intention, like setting an intention when you go to the supermarket, have a shopping list, have an idea of what you want to cook that week. So set an intention and don't just get led astray by the supermarket with a position of products or whatever is on sale as such. So have a strategy in place, and that removes the temptation of putting like some suspect food in your basket.
Yeah.
Ideally, like everyone could eat at a farmer's market, but obviously not everyone lives by a farmer's market or is close in that sort of town type area or village to be that puts it on. But you can, like, there's some amazing companies online that do it, and that's the same thing with like meat, buying it online. But you can go on websites and see what's in season in your local area. And that's a great resource. I can't remember what the website for the UK one is. I think it's called eattheseasons.co.uk. And it has like what's in season. And this will reflect like what's at the farmer's market.
I think that's really important to know where to look, because sometimes I'll just get, like myself personally, I'll just get lots of fruit to put in a bowl and a mixed variation of vegetables just to vary the color of what's in my basket. But to know what's in season would be great.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be able to have the fruits in there. Because obviously you're living in just outside London. There's hardly any fruit growing at this time of year. But in the supermarket, they have to share or state the location of where the food was grown. So that's when you can see products with Spain on them, or
Sri Lanka,
Kenya with the green beans, or lettuce from Morocco, whatever it is.
Mm.
It's crazy. No one actually thinks about the global emissions, the emissions of getting all these fruits and vegetables or so-called superfoods like quinoa, maca, whatever it is, shipped across the world for their needs, because it's touted as beneficial for us. So it'd be like looking at the foods in your area will solve that. Like eating what's in season will solve so many problems.
Yeah. I know you've mentioned about digital detox. I've seen a few posts on that, and talking about light and how it affects us. Reduce time on mobile phones. What's the benefits of doing this, would you say? What's the biggest benefit of having a digital detox and really trying to keep things as natural as possible?
Clarity. Like clarity of your mind, not being influenced by others, being true to yourself, making better decisions for you and the people around you, so that will lead to being a better person, being able to improve yourself every single day. So just those simple things. And actually having focus and sticking to your tasks is so hard nowadays, because we're just constantly distracted, whether it be from like email notifications, WhatsApp messages, spam, subscriptions in our email box, mostly just TV adverts, YouTube's pop up with adverts again, like constantly bang, 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 bang all the time. So just switching it off and re-establishing like your mission, like what's your purpose, all these kind of things.
How do you narrow things down yourself? How do you keep it to a minimum? I mean, lots of people use social media, and obviously if your business is around your laptop a lot of the time, you're probably going to get lots of emails. How do you know you're not going to miss out on certain things that are important? How do you manage all of that?
Yeah, I think it's about setting boundaries and establishing what you actually need to do, and giving yourself a sort of limit of what you need to get done. And yeah, fair enough, a lot of work is online. I spend quite a bit of my time on my computer reading studies, doing courses, replying to emails, X, Y, and Z. I think it's understanding the pros and understanding the cons as well, the negative impacts that it may have. And setting boundaries, perhaps with time limits, or you can get some, even on like Instagram, it tells you can set a limit of how much time you spend there, or you can have like a pop-up which says you've been on your limit on Instagram today, with a little reminder, or just having a reminder on your phone, or having a post-it note at home to remind yourself, turn lights off, or all these kind of things.
Yeah. So are you wearing blue light blockers there?
Yeah, these are day blockers by Blue Blocks.
So by Blue Blocks. So how many different types are there? There's about 3 types. Is that right?
They sell 3 types. They have the clear, which are these ones now. So that reduces about 30% of the blue spectrum of the wavelengths. They also do an amber one, which is ideally used around just after sunset, the early part of the evening, and also the dark amber ones, which should be used after dinner, because a lot of people actually just wear red ones early in the evening and then eat. That's actually going to impact our ability to handle glucose if we're eating carbs, for example, just because there's like melatonin receptors and melatonin released in the pancreas as well, and that's where we release insulin.
Right. So what time is it now? 11:25. And you've got this to reduce your light down by what, 30%?
Yeah. So it's just giving me a more even spectrum of what would be outside. But obviously, because it's midday, near enough midday, we'd have higher amounts of blue during the day, and there'll be UVA, UVB, so there'll be purple light there as well. And just as this place actually where I am now is actually not too bad. It's kind of, there's some amber lights around here. But then again, like, this is indoors. Ideally, I'd be outside, but I can't because the Wi-Fi doesn't reach out there.
Right.
So yeah, I think like you can easily get overwhelmed with the information out there with blue blocking glasses, with the light spectrum. But the simple message is, like, try to go out first thing in the morning and get some daylight. When you're indoors, try to reduce the blue lights, the high intensity, especially in a later and early part of the day. And in the evening, reducing all blue light. Like, you don't have to wear glasses as well. You can actually just get some apps on your phone, or you can get an app on Iris on your computer. You can use candles, so you don't actually have to wear glasses. It's only when you can't control the situation where the glasses are useful.
What is a good app to use for your phone, and what you can use for your laptop to reduce?
Yeah, so laptop, I find Iris, IRIS, the best one. It's like £15 and it's a lifetime. You can control the contrast, what kind of temperature that you want. With the phone, I use night mode 24/7. And in the evening, I will do that. I don't know what it's called. It's that hack, that trick where you can touch the button 3 times and it goes red.
Oh, okay, right.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Yeah, I don't know if I got it on this because I just updated my phone. But like, there's I don't know what I'm doing there. But
I normally get that on my watch. Did you have that on your watch?
Yeah, I think it was just like an emergency call thing. But there's a way of making your whole screen go red. And I think there's you can go on YouTube and search Luke's story. I think he's done the step-by-step way of doing that.
So, okay, cool. So during the day, we want to be alert. We want to be awake. We want to get stuff done. So why would a person need to reduce the amount of blue light then if it's like, 11:25 in the morning?
Yeah, it's just exceedingly high. So when you're indoors, it's an artificial light. So that light hits your eyes. There's a flickering light as well. So that's going to cause some damage to your eye, to your retina. So there's that. So that's a reason why you might want to wear some glasses to reduce the impact of flicker. And just to make it more mellow, like, yes, we want to have that stimulation and alertness. So we want bright, but in fact, actually, the indoors compared to all outdoors, and this is done on luminous. I can never pronounce this word. Lux, essentially, luminous. I think I said it right. So there's lux, and that's the brightness of light. And outdoors, you're like, at this time of day, we'll probably get like 100,000 lux. Indoors right now, this would probably be like 120 lux. So there's a significant difference. It may appear bright, but it's actually not compared to outdoors. Outdoors, you're going to get a whole spectrum of the rainbow. Indoors, you're literally just going to get flat line from the red to the orange, and then you're just going to get the blue going to the green, and then that's it, really.
There's a lot of talk around blue light and also red light, but not so much green light or purple.
Yeah.
Why would that be? Why is that?
So like purple light, you think of UVA, UVB, and UVC, but UVC rarely touches the earth. Like, you don't want to block that, really. I mean, people block that with sunglasses, or when they go skiing as such, and that's probably a valid thing to be doing when you're skiing or when you're water skiing and you're getting that reflection from the purple rays. So that's very damaging, and obviously it's enhanced with the reflection of the water, or whether it be snow. With green, so green is actually a light that you do want to block in the evening, and blue blocks do block the green spectrum on their glasses, and it is it is just as stimulating as the blue.
What's the benefit of green?
So again, it would be alertness as well.
Right. Okay. And what did you say purple was?
Purple would be UV.
UV. Oh,
the
okay.
UV range, yeah.
Right. And that's what normally when it's really sunny would get.
Yeah, I mean, like in the UK now, we're getting UVB and UVA at the moment. And that's in March. And like most people don't understand, like we get quite a lot of UV, but we're also affected by the pollution as well. Cloud cover. So that's another thing to consider when you're in London. And also EMFs as well. EMFs block the ability of UVB to hit your skin.
What's the benefit of UVA or UVB?
So we've got UVA. UVA is great for like vasodilation, so release of nitric oxide, and it's essentially priming our skin for the UVB. So UVA comes around. So if you think of like a clock, so in the morning we get the reds, predominantly red light, and near infrared. So that's the light that you can't see, which is invisible. And then we transition to around 10 o'clock, and that's when UVA comes in. And then around midday to 1 o'clock, for example, that would be when UVB comes. And then again, it goes back on that cycle. So then UVA comes in, and then it goes back down to the red and more near infrared. But there's near infrared light throughout the whole day, and that makes up about 40% of the light that hits the earth, and that's invisible. And that has a massive impact on our melatonin levels throughout the day. And obviously when we're indoors or when we're behind windows, we're not getting that light, and that's very healing for the body. So you've obviously heard of like infrared saunas, red light therapy. All these things are delivering near infrared, and we're very deficient and deprived of it in our modern society because we're just such indoor creatures.
How often do you think people should go outside? At least,
well, ideally first thing in the morning, just to set the tone or rhythm of our circadian rhythm. And then throughout the day, at least, like people have cigarette breaks every hour. I think there should be a thing called light breaks every hour, especially in like office workers. Like every hour, just go outside. You don't have to stare at the sun. You just need to look up at the clouds or whatever, just for 5 minutes.
It also affects the amount of vitamin D which we get.
So vitamin D, we can make vitamin D now, this time of year. We can also consume it from oily fish, from lamb, from beef, from eggs, fattier meat as such. And there's a seasonality. There's a seasonal variation in the ability to make vitamin D, especially in the northern and the southern hemisphere.
Do you think it's important to have it as a supplement as well? Some people have it as a supplement, like religiously.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't personally take vitamin D as a supplement, and nor would I recommend it for clients as well.
What about darker skinned people?
Not really, no. I'd really, so like this is a bigger topic. It's like essentially we would get fat and obese in the summer. Well, this is talking northern and southern hemisphere. So we would get fat and obese in the summer, and our adipose tissue, our fat cells, store vitamin D. So we would be really high in vitamin D from the summer. And then as we go more ketogenic and lower carb, essentially, because there's no produce there, no carbs there, we'd liberate the fat stores as energy, and we would liberate the vitamin D, so we'll be able to have vitamin D throughout the winter as well. But obviously this is a bit backwards because no one eats seasonally, and this is when season thing comes in. So when we have in the summer, we're abundant in carbohydrates and there's more daylight, so we'll be eating more and we'll be putting on weight, not in a bad way, but in a good way, as a protective mechanism and as a storage for food in the winter when there'll be less food and we'll be fasting more. So essentially you'll be able to make all the vitamin D you can in the summer.
Got you, right. Do you reckon people with lower percentage of body fat has less amount of fat soluble vitamins in their body?
I don't know the research in that. I'm not sure. A lot of them would be stored in the liver anyway, not just in the adipose tissue.
Okay, cool. All right, so you're a great advocate of kind of like ancestral type of living, I would assume, from looking at your posts and what you've discussed right now. If you were stranded on an island and you had 3 key tools which you can use for survival, what would those be?
Tools in terms of getting food?
It could be, yeah, getting food or just like your survival kit.
It would be the ability to create fire. So some flint and some wood, and probably like a stick or spear to catch fish, or a net. Yeah, to catch animals, basically.
Okay. So a stint, did you say?
No, a flint. Like, I don't know what, I think it's a flint. How you create fire. You know when you strike like the rocks
They
together.
use rocks in it?
Yeah. I think it's a flint.
So you'd be happy with some rocks?
Well, essentially, because fire is a big key to how humans acquired their massive brain. So yeah, and keep warm as well. And it also provides, again, the red light and near infrared.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Infrared, you know, from the fire?
Near infrared, yeah. Infrared light from the fire and red light. And you've got the whole thing about the social interaction, about getting around the fire as well in your community. It's a place of shelter, storytelling. So fire was a major revolution in our history.
Right. So in terms of like health, this is sort of like branching off that now, for like human health. Being with others helps us, I don't know, it helps our immune system, it helps to, I don't know, increase oxytocin and many other chemicals. What other benefits are there of just other human interaction?
You obviously got reproduction.
Oh yeah, quite a good benefit.
That would be a big one. But it would also be like even hunting as well. We'll be hunting in groups. We'll be going after like mammoths or whatever it was back then. Like the ability to hunt in groups and have numbers. And that would be predominantly, if you look at the Hasdas from Africa, the men will go off hunting and the female will go off looking for the roots, the tubers, and a bit of leaves as such. So it'd be like the community of gathering food. And the kids would just be like just with their mums. And there'd be a hierarchy there as well, with the leaders or utilizing the elders as well, giving them the wisdom to pass on to younger generation.
Have you read into a book called Sapiens? I haven't read it myself. But...
I haven't read it. I know of it.
Where did you do lots of your research in terms of ancestral living?
It would be Jack Kruse. He's a great resource in terms of how humans became who they are today. The assimilation of predominantly seafood into our diet and the growth of our brain and our permeability of our gut acquiring viral DNA from seafood. So he's got amazing blogs called Epipaleo and Brain Gut, which are all about the evolution perspective. Also, I'm reading now is The Carnivore Code by Paul Salamandino, and he actually talks about the history of humans, Homo sapiens as such, and the lineage, the evolution perspective of when fire came about, when Neolithic industrialized seed grain grown was the major detriment to human health, essentially. Yeah, so
That's
those
interesting.
yeah, that's a really. I think you're reading it now, aren't you?
No, that's a book which I'm looking to get very soon. But I've got so many books I haven't even gone through yet.
Yeah, me too. Well, me too.
Metabolic and stuff.
I've got a whole stack of books to just get through, and then I keep on seeing new ones. I'm like, oh, I'll just get
Yeah,
that.
just get excited. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
it's tough. It's not sweets in a candy store no more. It's like books in the Amazon Prime
yes,
now.
exactly. And like I get a new credit on the Audible as well, and
Okay.
I just go, oh, let me get a new book. I'll get a new audio book, but I've still got a physical hard copy which I haven't read. But I think there's definitely going to be some real valid stuff in the carnivore code. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the second chapter, and I really like Paul's work. I think if you go over and remove your bias or your opinion of him as a person, whoever, like wherever you are, and not see him as an extremist, because that's what a carnivore diet is to a certain extent, and just see his points, and they're very valid, and he uses great language, and it's very easy to understand as well. And he's not looking for you to say he's right, or he's not looking for you to agree with him. He's just making his point, and I think it's really good.
I think it's very interesting. I think he's been following it for, it's been a couple of years now, I believe.
Yeah, I think he heard it from Jordan Peterson on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he's also an MD as well, and he just tried it out. I think he had eczema issues, and he tried it out, and it improved, and he just dug his head into the research, and just took it from there.
Makes sense. I mean, if it's working for him.
Yeah, but it still omits the environment and the light implications of food. And actually, if you think about the protein as well, it's depleted in deuterium. So that's another benefit of going all carnivore. It's actually a low deuterium diet, similar to the ketogenic diet.
A low what?
Low deuterium. So remember I said there's you have hydrogen, you have different isotopes of hydrogen, and one of them would be deuterium. It's slightly heavier, so a heavier water molecule, hydrogen molecule. So that it just means that it's got a different neutron to make it heavier. And animal protein is low in deuterium. So that's sort of like a side benefit that you get from going on a carnivore diet.
Right, got you.
But then again, like I think in this modern world that we live in, it is deemed as being extreme. And the vegan diet as well is extreme. If you're saying remove all animal food from your diet, that's very extreme as well. Typically, that would only be seen in the equator, where there'd be a massive amounts of vegetation all year round. So then it always comes back to light and your environment that you're in when it comes back to food choices.
Light. Okay.
Light. Well, essentially, there's a book called Light Shapes Life.
Really? Another book I need to get. All right.
Well, and it goes back further into like the human evolution, or even like our cells and our mitochondria, and about how photosynthesis in our prehistoric cell changed, and the ability to have utilize oxygen. It's fascinating.
Wow. Okay, so wow. With the multitude of vitamins and minerals which is available on this planet, how does a person get that from their meals, especially like soils being depleted of vital nutrients? And I don't know, if you're going to be very specific with your diet and eat things in season, then it's more stuff which is eliminated from your plate. How do people do it? How is it possible? How were people doing it before? There's so many different varieties which we need. How is it done?
it would come back to question like what's normal in terms of ratios and required nutrients. So do we need massive amounts of vitamin C all year round, or do we only need a small amount? It's just questioning these things. Ideally, like it's well known, animal-based foods have the most nutrients compared to plant foods. Plant foods have certain anti-nutrients, which make it harder and difficult to utilize the nutrients that they have. So we want to be eating nose to tail, not just muscle meat, which is very common in the bodybuilding industry as such. But like we want to be having a balanced ratio of glycine to methane, utilizing bones, utilizing connective tissue, utilizing the organs. But of course, like nobody really wants to be eating kidneys or heart because it's deemed as not appealing, when essentially like these are the foods which in the animal kingdom, such as tigers, lions, in the wild, would be consumed first and be highly prized, not looking for the filet mignon, for example. So, and just being smart, because like I said previously, if you do eat plants, it'd be looking at the seasonality of them and the ability to handle the issue, like to handle the anti-nutrients and the deuterium found in them as well. So essentially, and not like a crazy meat heavy diet, but like a meat based diet, nose to tail, not being scared of fat, but also not being scared of carbs when they're available too.
Some people do shy away from carbs because they're pretty scared that it's gonna make them fat, and
well, that goes back to the question, like what's deemed a carb. Like someone would say, I'm scared of, I don't want to eat carbs. Like that carb could be like, a carb's anything from a plant. So some spinach, for example, is a carb. Or we're talking about a burger bun. Like there's a massive difference in terms of someone's definition of a carb. And obviously the burger bun is going to be hyper palatable. It's probably going to have like cheese in it, with some toxic fats, like man-made fats, some juicy meats, and like some deep fried chips. So we got to think about like the bigger picture of what the food comes in. Or what comes along with the carbs as well, essentially.
Yeah.
Because like essentially carbs in nature, with the season, they're great. They're amazing. They serve a purpose. They serve a purpose of increasing our ability to increase our weight, whether that be if you want to manipulate that and make it to more muscle mass, or if we want to put on fat tissue, which is, like I said previously, a beneficial thing, how we used to live, and sort of like a backwards way of thinking that we have now in terms of obesity.
That's quite interesting though. I mean, in some places, I don't know whether it's still the case, but to see someone who is quite overweight, it's like, oh wow, you're living a good life. I know certain parts of Africa, it used to be that way. I don't know if it still is, but you know, if you're quite fat, it's like, oh my God, wow, like you are wealthy, you are living large, like you'd be well respected.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's not so much like that.
Yeah. I think that's like that in Asia as well. And you're seen as a king as such. But I think, and that goes back to like the Henry VIII in the Tudor times. He was like a fat bastard essentially, with like loads of women. But like he lived a very negative, like he lived a bad lifestyle because he was drinking a lot. Circadian rhythm was pretty like screwed. And he didn't give the environmental stimulus of like the winter with being cold, and essentially like being fat is okay, like, but it's the ability of utilizing the fat in the winter and then getting lean come spring and repeating that cycle again. Like when you think of like a bear, essentially, a wild black bear or brown bear, it puts on weight, it hibernates, and it comes out shredded. And that's exactly the same in humans to a certain extent.
Well, that's the way we used to live, or that's
That's the way. Yeah, that's the way our physiology is hardwired, essentially.
Right.
Because that's why it's so easy for us to overeat. Like we just want to pull it away because we don't know when we're next eat. So we just want to eat. Like there wouldn't be such thing as a balanced diet or lifestyle, because it will just be like feast or famine, because our environment dictated life.
So we're hardwired to that behavior, to just want to continually eat.
Yeah, and then yes, but we have the ability to control some things. But then previously we wouldn't even know what a calorie is, or the energy density of things, or what macro or micronutrients certain foods have. So that's essentially a biohack to our physiology. We wouldn't have known these things, and we would have just eaten to our heart's content without having to have 5 square meals or 3 square meals a day. We were just eaten when we caught something and just gone crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are different types of nutrients or vitamins that work in conjunction or synchronize with others. Like you've got vitamin D, and it's good to have vitamin K2 with it, zinc with copper, collagen, and some vitamin C. And recently I was reading turmeric with black pepper, which helps with absorption or something, or increases its therapeutic benefits. Are there any others which you think people should know about, where people might be just getting one particular type of vitamin or focusing more on one and forgetting the other when they can work in synergy?
Yeah. So you have to go look at foods and you'll see the ratios that they have. So with vitamin D, you'd also want to be looking at a vitamin A. So when you look at cod liver, it's high in vitamin D. But it's also high in vitamin A, and vitamin A is the transcription factor which controls vitamin D in the nucleus in a gene. And vitamin A is not really accessible from plant foods, particularly in the northern hemisphere population. So we'd need to eat animal foods like liver to get that vitamin A, but also having magnesium as well. Like if you're low in magnesium, you're not going to have the ability to make vitamin D, because it's 2 enzymatic steps to create vitamin D, and they both require magnesium.
Right.
Yeah, so there's that factor. I mean, like nature makes no mistakes in terms of the nutrients that it has. What would be another one? I think you can get really neurotic about synergies and combinations and stuff, but if you're eating whole foods, they literally have them ready for you in the appropriate amounts and ratios.
Because it will just be together with it anyway.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, especially if you're eating nose to tail, as you put it.
Yes, essentially, nose to tail, and eating plants in their seasonal variation. Just trying to think of, and the role of copper and how copper controls iron metabolism in the body. So copper's really high in liver again. So it's like nose to tail. You've got to utilize the whole animal when we're constructing a diet. Most of the time people are not anemic, it's literally just low copper. Copper's needed in terms of how we use oxygen in the body, and oxygen's needed to create water in our cell, in the mitochondria. So that's going to have a profound effect on our bodies, and also in the ratio of other nutrients such as vitamin K, selenium. Yeah, I think vitamin A is probably one of the most important nutrients in the body.
Oh, really?
Mm.
It's not something which I hear spoken about a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, there was a gentleman called Weston A. Price, and he went on a great exploration of the world to different cultures and tribes, and looked at how they were eating, what they were eating, when they were eating, how they lived their lives, which was predominantly outdoors, not indoors. And they used nose to tail eating, and they all had vitamin A, or high sources of vitamin A. Like in the African tribes, they're actually eating blood of the animal, which is really high in carotenoids, which is a vitamin A sort of precursor, and that they have the ability to convert that into the active retinol form. Yeah, and that protects against sun damage as well, the carotenoids.
And what about carrots? Is that a weak source of people trying to get a vitamin
Yeah,
A?
well, you need to have copper to convert the vitamin A. You need copper to convert that vitamin and feed that beta carotene into the vitamin A, the retinol. So if you've got poor copper status, it's going to be an issue, and you're going to have a weak ability to convert that. And essentially, like Northern Europeans are poor converters. I think it's like 10% of the population have good genes to convert the beta carotene into the retinol.
Are you saying it's more a gene thing and not the choice of foods? Which
No, it's predominantly a gene thing, because we were either not eating carrots all year round, or we had to have high levels of animal foods.
Wow. Okay, that's something to bear in mind. So I've got some questions which has been sent to me by some of the people on social media. You asked me to just send a couple of questions, or ask the audience.
I thought it was a good idea.
Yeah. So one person said, what are the best foods to give a slow release of energy during the day?
Slow release of energy. So we've got to think about protein, high protein, and a moderate fat source. So eggs would be probably one of the best things, and the ratio of eggs with protein and fat is even, more or less. So eggs and some just green vegetables to go alongside with it, perhaps.
So that'll give a nice sustained energy throughout the day.
Yeah.
Any particular type of eggs?
Preferentially free-range, pasture-raised, and organic. But again, do the best that you can. That's it, really. Just keep on doing the best that you can. Like, it's not the end of the world if you like. And I'm on a budget. I'm not like buying crazy priced meat or eggs or vegetables. Like, I'm trying to be as realistic and save money at the same time as well.
Yeah.
So just doing the best that you can.
Yeah. Cool. Should Nightshade's food be avoided?
I think in the summer that'd be fine, or when they're in season. It wouldn't be the base of my diet, and it will really be the state of your digestive function to handle the nightshades, the lectins, the oxalates which they contain. And that'll go back to your ability to handle them. So yeah, I don't think there's an issue, but I wouldn't base my diet on nightshades, and I'd try to keep them more when they're in season.
What is the fear about nightshades for those who have no idea?
So it just causes low-grade inflammation in the digestive tract, increasing chances of intestinal permeability. So that's the opening of the cells which line the gut and allow for larger proteins and to come through the wall, essentially, and cause inflammation throughout the whole body, whether it be like brain fog, whether it be skin issues, joint pain. And that's the theory. That's what's proposed.
Right. Okay. All right. So for a couple trying for a baby, are there any types of foods which should be included or avoided?
It's not just food. You've got to think about your stress levels. You want to be sending the right signal, especially for the mother, to lower their stress. The body's only going to be creating the right hormones if it's deemed and perceived as safe. So making sure stress is kept low, there's some physical movement still going on, like basic walks, circadian rhythm. All these things are just as important as looking at nutrients of food. So a predominantly one would be looking into choline as well, and that's found in eggs, alongside a whole host of other nutrients, which are very beneficial as well.
Cool, cool. Any foods to avoid? Just general crap food, I would assume.
General crap food, I would really limit my intake of swordfish and bluefin tuna, or tuna in general, just because they have high amounts of mercury. Any other foods? And if you suspect any food is causing you issues, I'd probably just remove it. It's like, if it's not agreeing with you, it's probably that's a sign that you shouldn't be eating it.
Right.
So just going on your intuition.
Okay. Cool. There is a book called The Dirty Genes. It says avoid fermented, aged leftover food to reduce histamine loads. Would you be able to explain or add to that, or give us your thoughts?
Yeah. So when you cook food and you leave it, essentially when you do meal prep, over time, the food creates a molecule called histamine, and that can be an issue for some who have issues degrading histamine in our intestinal, in our digestive system. So it might be a wise issue if you're noticing some allergies, some sneezing, some itching, some readiness around your body, to try to keep to maybe like meal prepping for 1 day ahead instead of like leaving it for like 3 to 4 days ahead. So you've got aged cheese as well, you've got smoked fish, dark chocolate, some coffee, so some good foods, but it might be an issue for some, but you've got to think about why haven't you got the ability to degrade the histamine in the food. So that would be looking at increasing or looking into the pathways of vitamin B6, vitamin C, copper, magnesium. These are all nutrients required to degrade DAO, essentially diamine oxidase.
Right. So look into diet that can help to mitigate any issues that you might have from fermented types of foods.
Yeah, like there's going to be a bigger root cause issue when someone has a histamine issue. So that'd be looking at things like mercury, could be looking at things like mold issues, whether you've lived in a moldy house once upon a time, because that will impair your ability to break down histamines.
Okay, so kind of off the subject from there, as you mentioned histamine, what about like summertime, people who suffer during the summer with sneezing and stuff like that? Is that a diet thing, or again to do with mold and that sort of thing, which they're missing?
That would be looking at your immune system as a whole. So potentially it could be another histamine issue as well. Seasonal allergies, dust. Looking at your immune response, why is your immune system being triggered? What's preventing, or why is your immune cells saying it's not safe? Have a response. And there's usually like some blocking factors involved there.
Okay. What's your thoughts on antihistamines?
Like they work short term. If you want to eat nose to tail, you can eat lamb's kidneys, which are really high in that enzyme diamine oxidase. and that's basically an antihistamine as well.
Right.
Plus it provides you with copper and B6 as well to mitigate the effects. But like, yeah, antihistamines do work. You can also look at quercetin as well. That's quite a good natural antihistamine, which is a molecule found predominantly in like apples and stuff.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Good to know. Sometimes it might happen with myself, but I know a lot of people during the summertime, they do suffer from it. So I guess it might be a thing where your immune system or just your levels of certain vitamins is highlighted during that time.
Yeah, predominantly, yeah.
Okay, so if someone has an inflammatory response from training, what would be the best anti-inflammatory foods for recovery?
So they get information from training.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'd ask them like, how many times a day are they training? What's the conditions that they're training in? Are they doing too much, exerting themselves too much? Do they have the innate ability to handle that inflammation in the first place? That'll be looking at their mitochondria. Are they able to have enough ATP to handle their energy demands and stress?
How do you check levels of mitochondria or ATP?
Well, you can do. There's some testings that you can do, like the organic acid test or a NutriVal from Genova. They're looking at your cellular function, at metabolomics, so steps and pathways along the way of how you create energy, cofactors, nutrients, micronutrients, neurotransmitters, intestinal pathways, dysbiosis, candida, oxalates, all these kind of things. So you can do some testing. So the basic thing would be like, what's your recovery looking like? How's your circadian rhythm? Are you training at night time? Are you training first thing in the morning? All these kind of things before even looking to like, there's a cure with like, there's no cure with food. Like there's no cure, there's no supplement or superfood to cure an inflammatory issue.
Yeah,
it's looking at the whole picture of the lifestyle as a whole.
Cool. So got a two-part question. Do you have a preference in bone broths? And is one better than another?
I think having chicken or beef, whatever you can get. I'm not a fan of pork. Even turkey would be pretty good to get some bones. Just doing what you can. Just adding some flavors to them, i.e. like rosemary, some garlic, some ginger maybe, a splash of apple cider vinegar to help with the extraction of certain nutrients. And not boiling it too crazy. Like you don't need to do a 24-hour bone broth. Doing like one for 8 hours is like just good enough.
Okay. All right. So
and also with beef, I don't really like doing marrow, just the fatty part, the marrow bones. I see no point of making that into a bone broth because literally it's just fat. You want like the working bones. You want like the connective tissue. So just getting like ribs, like the rib bones or the bones from the loin or something like that. Just befriend your butcher, and they'll happily give you some bones for a little bit of cash.
Okay. What about fish bone broth?
Not a fan.
Not a fan. And your reasons?
Doesn't taste great, mate.
What about nutrient-wise? Is it?
Well, I have to like a crab bisque, so like a crab broth essentially. It's amazing. But I just find like the state of the environment and the levels of like microplastics in the sea, it's probably, and mercury and stuff like that, heavy metals, it's probably not a wise idea to like go crazy and boiling up loads of fish bones.
Got you. Right.
Yeah, it's just that it's pretty a little, and I'll probably just find it a bit too fishy. Like, I can handle oysters. I love oysters, but fish broth, I'm not too sure.
It probably smell pretty potent, that like vaporized fish. What are your thoughts on plant poison lectins?
I don't eat massive amounts of oxalates or lectins, which are typically in the same category. Like, they're the same foods. I think like, just go with your tolerance. But then again, like, these lectin-rich foods would be produced in seasonal variations. Like, you might have a response where you eat these foods in the summer when they're in season and there'd be no issue. Or if you're trying to eat them all year round, or you have a bit of stress going on, or you're not sleeping great, then you might be like, of course, you're gonna have some response to them. So I think there's, like, not saying like that it's good or bad per se. It's like this context and what's your overall health, what's your digestive system like as a whole, and that's where I'll be going with them. But I don't think like lectins should be a staple food component in our diet. I treat them like those foods as like a condiment as such.
Oh, like a condiment.
Yeah.
Okay. So you do have people who have that as a staple of their part of their diet. You got vegans. So are you? Wow. Okay. So what would your advice be to vegans then?
Just be very, very smart. Like, usually, most of the time, they have a lot of great knowledge and understanding of their bodies and also of health as well. So as long as they do a lot of planning and understand basic principles, nutrient density, then they should be fine and have a good state of health when they start it as well. Like, there's no reason why they can't thrive or do well. I just don't find it's the evolutionary diet that gives us the best health from an epigenetic level. And it's just to acquire the protein it's just a lot of carbs and grains or legumes, and it's just a lot of fiber, and humans don't have like the best ability to handle the fiber. Like, we're not like chimpanzees. Our gut is completely different to any other animal in the world. We have very acidic stomachs with a short and large intestine, a short and small intestine, from the assimilation of eating animal foods per se. But then again, like, you go back, like, if you lived in the equator, you're probably going to be able to thrive on a vegan diet much better than someone living in like Alaska or Northern America or in Scandinavian countries.
Would you say it's a lot to do with genetics which will determine whether your body is suited towards that?
So it'd be genetics, but also your haplotype of your mitochondria DNA. And that would be looking at your ability of hot and cold as well. And this goes actually back to Rabanya. So your ability, I bet you're really good in the sauna, but I bet and we know your ability in the plunge pool is shocking.
What was that?
Your ability to handle cold in the plunge pool is shocking.
No, it's terrible. I don't mind the cold, but the pool, that's
it's like it's cold. It's cold, and that will come back to your mitochondria and its ability to create heat and dissipate heat, get rid of heat under these conditions. And that's the same thing with diets, the nutrients, the chemical structure of their foods, and that goes back to your gut function and the cells in the gut to handle these molecules.
Got you.
So it's not literally, it's not just the nucleus, the DNA. It's more to do with the mitochondria and the communication between the mitochondria and the nucleus. And that's called the epigenetics.
Epigenetics. I've actually done an epigenetics test recently, which works on methylation or something. Is that right?
Is that with Omnos?
I think they're called DNAge, my DNAge.
Okay. Yeah, but like, what have you got your results back?
Yeah, so the time when I done the test, I was 40, and it said my biological age was 38.
Okay.
And I was not impressed. I was expecting like 32 or something like that, and I was like, all right. Like, even though it was better than my chronological age, I was like, this ain't cool, man. What am I supposed to do? I actually contacted DNAge to say, all right, like, I'd like to speak to someone to know how I could improve these results. And the information I got back was and I'm not sure if they can legally give me that advice on how I could improve that. So I was like, right, okay. You just left me here stranded. Like,
left me hanging. You tell me this bad news. Well, bad news to a certain extent. You just leave me here.
Yeah.
Well,
you had one done yourself?
Not looking at my age. So you have like telomere testing, which the caps off your nucleus. Caps, like there's telomerase enzymes, which look at your age, like essentially what you just said. I haven't done anything like that yet. No, I'm not really too bothered as long as I feel good. I'm okay with. I don't need a number really.
Right. I've heard about telomeres, and you can do a telomere test. What I've also heard are mixed reviews. I've heard that the epigenetics or Horvath clock is more accurate than telomere testing.
That's correct. That's correct. So like telomere testing can change from one day to the next. I've forgotten what that second word that you said. There's actually specific words which predicts when you're going to die, actually, which is more accurate. Right. I think it's Dr. Ted Asenaki. I can't pronounce his surname, but he was talking about that on a podcast, and he said that's a more accurate way opposed to telomeres.
What's his name again? Dr. Ted
Asenaki. He was at the Health Optimization Summit.
Is he the person who created the trophy?
Yes, him. Yeah.
Nootropic things. What are they called?
Trochees. Transcriptions. I think that's what their company's called.
Transcriptions. Yes, I might even have some somewhere. There we go. Bag of drugs right there. Here we are. For those who are listening to this on podcast, I've got some blue cannatines. How would you pronounce it? I'm just showing it on the video. So yeah, I've taken these a few times. Sometimes what I've found is I might feel a little bit depleted later on in the day. Maybe it's to do with, I don't know, a diet I've had, or maybe lack of sunlight or something. I remember listening to another podcast and they mentioned that if you train and take this, it actually works. Synergizes very well with the body, or being out in the sunlight helps to activate it a bit more. I'm not too sure ingredients.
Is that what he says?
Well, I heard it from, not him directly. I heard it from, I think, Ben Greenfield on.
Yeah. I think I heard that as well, actually. It's got nicotine in there, a small amount of nicotine, caffeine, and it just acts on your NAD.
Right.
And it's an electron donor, basically. So how you shuttle energy across your mitochondria. I've yet to try them actually. I always see Tim with them or using them. I just unfortunately have not had one yet. But
we meet up soon. Don't worry, I can hook you up, bro. I got the hookup.
But actually, I just reached out to Dr. Scott Scher, who is also the other co-founder of the company, and I'm having a meeting later on today with him.
Seriously.
Yeah,
I've got a podcast with him soon as well. Actually,
oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So I'm going to be discussing more about this. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I think he's going to send me some out anyway.
That's awesome. Couple of questions which I actually skipped past and I forgot earlier. You gave some great ideas on prepping meals on your page, which takes between 15 to 20 minutes, which is great. A lot of people, they get, prepackaged food, which they feel is convenient, but this is also convenient and very healthy. What's the average budget for the meals which you prepare in these examples which you show on your page?
If it's not wild salmon, it's literally like £4, £3.50, £4 per meal.
Wow, that's amazing.
I don't eat fancy food though. Like the most fancy thing sometimes I have is like wild salmon.
Okay.
Or I might treat myself to a really nice like big piece of like prime rib, like a bone-in ribeye essentially. But then I'm good friends with the butcher who looks after me and gives me a discount.
Okay, so
I'm lucky. Like my food is fairly cheap. If I plan and if I be smart, and if I have things prepared, and I don't have to go on Whole Foods and like spend £15 on a lunch, which I can make for like £3, £4 out.
Yeah. So we got to make friends with the butchers.
Befriend the butcher. Like be buddies with the butcher.
Unless you're vegan.
Oh yeah.
You got to figure something out.
Or you just be friends go to the farmer's market and be friends with the farmers, or like the vegetable growers.
Right. Yes. And that's useful, obviously, for omnivores. What would be your tips, for cheap, healthy shopping? So you mentioned that farmers market, maybe, or butchers would be cheaper.
Nose to tail.
Just getting a whole nose to tail.
Yeah, like
buy the whole cow.
Well, getting a whole chicken, roasting the chicken. A portion of that whole bird can go for a meal as well. You're left with a carcass, so you can make a bone broth. But also, after you boil the carcass, like have the carcass and have the bone broth, you're left with like some meat still on the bird. And you can shred that, make that into something. I think eggs are a really good source, a cheap source of protein and fat as well. They're fairly cheap, like 25 to 30p an egg, which is nothing. Like you can get and just don't waste your money on like even like matcha lattes or coffees. Like in London, they're typically like £3.50 for a coffee. It's a lot. You do that every single day. Like that's like thousands. That's like £1,000 odd a year, and you can do a lot with that. You don't need to buy like fillet steaks. You don't need that. There's hardly any in chicken breasts. I think there's more value and benefits getting chicken thighs. And if like counting the macros and fat is an issue, like I just remove the fat from somewhere else and just get the thighs. Just doing things like that.
Cool. Good.
And don't be scared of the frozen food as well. Frozen vegetables, like frozen broccoli, peas, X, Y, and Z. Frozen berries when in season. They're all great things to do as well.
Is there any particular place they should get that? Any particular type of supermarket?
Whatever you can do, like Waitrose. Like Tesco's do like an OK organic range. You don't need to be shopping at Whole Foods to look for health products.
It's quite expensive in there. Like
Yeah.
I almost got broke quick. I was like, man, I need to take out a loan just to eat. This is insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like the substance behind it as well, like there's hardly any calories in most of their food as well. Like if you go from a salad bar, they still use shitty vegetable oils. Yeah, it's just subpar quality.
Yeah. Well, look, Ryan, I think I've covered quite a lot here, man, and I'm so much wiser for it. No, I really appreciate your time. Like the first moment I followed your page after our mutual friend Tim told me about it, it's like, wow, this guy is full of knowledge. So it's given me real great pleasure that I'm able to sit here and have a discussion and learn and pick your brains about some really informative stuff on not just ancestral living, but how we can bring things from back then to today, and just like understanding what we can use in our environment as well. So yeah,
I agree. It's been awesome to talk to you. But yeah, I'd leave on like, it's literally just not food. It's the bigger picture. It's the lifestyle. It's our sleep. It's our stress. It's our community, friends, family. It's having a purpose, movement, breathing, all these fundamental things, which are just as important as the food.
Absolutely. Thank you very much again. So you're available on Instagram as what is your page again? Is it Vitae? Live Vitae?
Live Vitae.
Live.
So that's spelled with like live, Live, Vitae, and got a website as well, which is www.livevitae.com.
Excellent. I'll put all that information in the notes anyway, so people can just click on there and check you out. Yeah. So thank you very much today. And
thank you, Roger.
No doubt we'll be talking again very soon.
Yeah, no worries.
Nice one. Take care. See you.